Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Yusuf Aram. The United States and Iran have traded fresh attacks even as Washington continues to signal that a diplomatic breakthrough may be close. The U.S. has targeted Iranian-linked shipping and infrastructure around the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran retaliated with missile and drone attacks against sites hosting U.S. forces in the region. Despite Trump's talk of a deal, Iranian officials insist major differences remain. On Thursday, Trump threatened to seize Iran's key oil export facilities on Kharg Island, only to back away just hours later. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said that Tel Aviv is not a party to the talks. Israel has stepped up its military operations in Lebanon and Syria, prompting a warning from Turkish President Erdoğan that its aggression is threatening Türkiye as well. So as tensions rise across multiple fronts, can diplomacy keep pace with events on the ground? For more, joining me now from Tel Aviv is Haaretz newspaper journalist Gideon Levy. From Washington, D.C., Anel Shiline, a senior fellow at the Quincy Institute. And from Istanbul, Helen Sarı Ertem, an associate professor at Istanbul Medeniyet University. Thanks for joining me. We're never at a loss for topics, especially when the issue is war in Iran. And Gideon, there's been a lot going on, and one of the most important issues or news reports over the past week has been the fallout between Trump and Netanyahu after a phone call that Trump confirmed that happened, where there was a lot of, let's say, very heated language being used. Let's not get into the words too much, but some heated language. How did that phone conversation play out in Israeli media, and how is it perceived amongst Israelis that are looking at that Trump-Netanyahu relationship, obviously very critical for Israel, and could quite possibly have some distance now in between them?
I don't think it is personal. I think that Israel and the United States will face very soon a major shift in the relationship between the two countries. I mean, the United States is not going to continue this unconditioned relationship in which the Americans are paying for everything and supporting everything blindly. This is over, and it might be over at Donald Trump's term, and it will definitely be over. Who is the next president? Will it be a Democrat or a Republican? This is over. But for the time now, you see the effect. I mean, Donald Trump was more popular in Israel than he was in the United States ever. And now you see in the polls that he's losing supporters in Israel. But this is obviously totally meaningless. Israelis are still confused to know where is their country aiming to, what is the goal, what is the end game, why do we continue to bomb in Lebanon, what for, all kinds of questions which are hardly discussed.
You know, you asked a lot of good questions, and next round, I hope you answer some of them too. Anel, I want to move on to you. This bromance between Netanyahu and Trump, it looks like it could be in danger. Obviously, 100 days ago, when the war in Iran started, there was some celebration as that finally Israel got what they want, that war with Iran. And Trump, even though he wasn't really focused on war. I mean, campaign promises being no forever wars, no war in the Middle East. He has always been tough on Iran. I mean, the maximum pressure in the first Trump term. Obviously, he had a lot of hawks around him with Bolton as national security advisor, Pompeo as Secretary of State around him back then. But when we looked at this campaign, we weren't expecting this. But now 100 days in, there were probably some promises that Iran was going to be quick, like a Venezuela-type job, get in, get out, Ayatollah dying in the opening days of the Iran war. But it didn't turn out like it was probably sold to Trump to get him to buy in. What do you make of this phone conversation, and what do you make of that relationship between Trump and Netanyahu? Is it really growing apart now?
The phone conversation reminds me of what we used to hear about phone conversations with Biden and Netanyahu, where Biden was allegedly very frustrated with Netanyahu, and then nothing would happen. The US would continue to send unconditional support to Israel's genocide in Gaza. I wanted to respond to something Gidon said, excuse me, regarding the US-Israel relationship. He's absolutely right that American public opinion has very much turned against this unconditional, open-ended support to Israel of $3.8 billion a year and much more since October 7th. But what we've seen lately is Congress is trying to shift this model of security assistance and foreign military financing into Pentagon procurement in a way that would be much less visible, much less difficult to walk back. It would be part of the US defense apparatus of integrating the Israeli and American militaries such that it would be much more difficult to end that. So while I agree with Gidon that the American people no longer want to provide billions and billions of US taxpayer dollars every year to Israel, which enables its aggressive behavior, but Congress is trying to shield that. And the Trump administration is also part of this, as is the Israel lobby, trying to protect this flow of money to Israel in a way that would be much more difficult to end.
Mm-hmm. Helen, I want to continue with you. I mean, so it's become quite obvious that Netanyahu has gotten under Trump's skin, but there's also another leader in the region who probably doesn't think too highly of Netanyahu, and that's Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Now, he very recently tweeted something, and it looks like that is aimed at Israel. Damascus and Beirut are Istanbul's two sister cities. Turkey's security does not begin only from Hatay. It begins from Aleppo. It begins from Damascus. It begins from Beirut. We will show no tolerance for any fait accompli in the countries of our brothers. We will turn a blind eye to no attack against our brothers. So, Helen, there you have this tweet. It looks like Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan signaling a posture change for Turkey that will probably not have much tolerance for any type of Israeli aggression in the region. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, let me clearly underline that looking at this tweet, we see a kind of repetition that Turkey is once more underlining that the security of the region, especially the security of the neighboring countries, the very critical ones like Syria, are very important for Turkey, for Turkey's future generations, for Turkey's stability, for any other project that Turkey is going through. I mean, any kind of, let us say, development project regarding Iraq, the win-win approach that Turkey has been pursuing for such a long time. That's why Turkey has no luxury at all to isolate the neighboring country's security or any kind of intervention from third parties, such as Israel, to the neighboring countries. And at the moment, it is very critical for Turkey, at least to protect the stability that Syria more or less achieved with the new regime. And we see that the continuing interventions, the military attacks are going on from Israel against Lebanon, and this is directly threatening the stability and security of the region, which is a very vital issue for Turkey's concerns.
Mm-hmm. Gideon, you asked some great questions at the close of your first answer. I mean, what is Israel doing in Lebanon? Another question also, what would a peace deal look like that would satisfy the Netanyahu administration? Because it does look like we're getting a little closer. I mean, I hate these types of fluid situations when we try to analyze events because things can change very quickly, especially with a Trump administration in power. But I mean, what does Israel expect in Lebanon? What type of peace deal will satisfy Netanyahu? I mean, what is the end game? What will the Middle East look like post-war?
I'm not sure that Netanyahu by himself knows what is his end game, and if he knows what is his end game, it's for sure not an achievable one. He would like to see Hezbollah disarmed, Hezbollah disappearing from the political scene in Lebanon. And this is obviously not realistic. Hezbollah is there. Hezbollah is powerful. We might like it, we might not. But any more wars will not change it. Israel tried already twice to occupy parts of Lebanon, to assassinate leaders of Hezbollah, to bomb the Dahya neighborhood in Beirut. And here we see Hezbollah is still alive and kicking, and so it will continue. Netanyahu has also some other hidden motivations, like his personal issues, the elections, the trial that he's facing. I don't think it's only about this, but for sure it has some meaning. But if you're asking what will be defined by him as a victory, he will say a surrender of Hezbollah. But this is very nice to say, but it will not happen in any case.
So, Anel, it looks like Trump is also scrambling for his own victory, trying to come out of this with a win or something that he can at least present to his base as a victory. How close are we right now to a deal that Trump can say, look, we won? And if that deal is made, is he going to be able to rein in Netanyahu to respect it?
That's the real question. It was interesting yesterday when Trump initially said he was going to strike Iran, and then at the last minute said he wasn't. It looked very much like a bluff. He has said this over, I believe, 24 times since the war started, and nobody really believes him at this point. But according to drop sites conversations with Iranian officials, it does seem that perhaps there may have been some progress, specifically that the United States may have moved forward on the agreement to unfreeze certain Iranian assets. This has been something they are demanding in order to be able to rebuild after the destruction of this war. So although I remain skeptical that this is anything more than hot air, I very much hope that there actually has been some progress. But as you said, it will require Trump making abundantly clear to Netanyahu that Israeli attempts to sabotage the deal, specifically by striking Lebanon, will not fly, that the U.S. will withdraw support, that the U.S. will not defend Israel. We know last time Israel struck Beirut, Iran responded by striking Israel, which was a new aspect of this conflict. Previously, Iran had responded when Israel struck Iran, but now Iran has made very clear that Lebanon has to be a part of the end of this war. Lebanon is going to be included. And so moving forward, it really will be up to Trump to make abundantly clear to Netanyahu that if he acts as a spoiler, that's it for the U.S.-Israel, or for the U.S. support for Israel. And Israel needs America's support in order to fight this and other wars.
Yeah, I mean, reining in Netanyahu, obviously, with Lebanon is going to be very, very tough. But also the tensions between Israel and Turkey as well. It looks like Trump is trying to, I don't want to say play mediator, but it looks like he's trying to manage the tensions between two leaders, or at least two countries that are U.S. allies. Helen, I want to play a very quick soundbite from the U.S. president. If you can listen in very quickly. This is U.S. President Donald Trump.
Well, as you know, he's a very good friend of mine. And we've worked very well together. I like him a lot. I'm not supposed to say that because the press will say, oh, he likes Erdogan. No, he's a hell of a leader and a strong person, very strong person. I haven't heard that at all. If I did, I'd call him, and I think I'd make sure that things were fine. I don't think that will happen with Turkey. Not as long as I'm president, because he respects me and I respect him. But beyond that, we have a good friendship. So, you know.
So the context behind this statement, obviously tensions between Israel and Turkey. So Trump saying, Erdogan respects me, I respect him. Can Trump also be able to manage the tension between these two countries as well?
Well, he has to, actually. He doesn't have any other chance because we don't need much more tension in the region. We already have a kind of a fireball because of the war with Iran, and it is already somehow tensing the relations between all the regional partners. The Gulf countries are on alarm, and Turkey is looking at many different directions. There are many things at stake which are directly linked to the stability and peace of the region. For that reason, I guess the President of the United States, Donald Trump, he will do his most. He will play as much as he can the best mediator role between Israel and Turkey. This reminds me the position of Greece and Turkey inside NATO, and we know that there will be a summit coming to Turkey. Let's say we will have a very big NATO summit in Ankara soon in July, and we are all talking about NATO, and most of the time we see that NATO's biggest success is not protecting its members from the outside threats, but protecting its own members from each other, protecting them not to fight against each other. And let us consider Israel, not on paper, but let's say de facto, as a NATO member. And in this position, we can make a similar kind of, let's say, metaphor between Israel and Turkey, like Turkey and Greece, that the United States has to protect these two significant allies from each other, not to increase the tension in the region. For that reason, I can totally understand why the Donald Trump administration used these sentences regarding the tension between Netanyahu and Erdoğan.
Gideon, at the end of your last answer, you mentioned elections. I'm very happy you did because there are a lot of elections in the region coming up in the next 10 to 15 months. And unfortunately, during election time, leaders really looking at domestic politics, and that domestic politics finding a way to shape foreign policy as well. And obviously in Israel, I believe October, November, sometime around then, Israeli elections. It looks like Netanyahu is losing popularity. How is everything impacting him? How is the elections impacting his decision-making process on what's going on in the region? And I want to ask you about Naftali Bennett, because obviously, normally elections could be considered a clean slate for Turkey-Israel relations. But Naftali Bennett's also been very tough on Turkey as well. He's actually the first to start that Turkey Next statement. So that could be some baggage with him if he does become the next prime minister. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that as well.
So first of all the polls, the serious polls, don't leave any room for doubt that Netanyahu will not be able to create the next government. Until now, there was not one single serious poll which shows that he will be able to create the next coalition. But it's still a few months to go, and Netanyahu proved in the past that if it comes to elections, he's almost a magician. But still, I believe he's not going to be the next prime minister. I'm not sure that Bennett will be the next prime minister because we have another candidate, Gadi Eisenkot, a former general, who might become the real candidate, but we don't know yet. But I can assure you that none of them, Eisenkot or Bennett, both of them will not change basically the attitude of Israel toward the core issues, namely the occupation, the apartheid, the wars. They all supported all the wars of Israel. In Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iran, they all stand behind it. There will be major changes domestically, but none of the candidates to replace Netanyahu are coming up with a promise to change the core issues of Israel. And this is quite desperating.
Before I move on, Gideon, I want to ask you one more question. The coalitions surrounding these potential future prime ministers, I mean, when we look at Netanyahu's current coalition, obviously there's no guardrails when you have people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and Gallant, probably even farther right than Netanyahu himself. Would there be some type of guardrails for a Bennett or any other potential prime minister where you'd have a more centrist or left-wing coalition partners that could say, you know, stop, this is too much?
Definitely, yes. I mean, those racists that in any other country in Europe would be defined as neo-Nazis, the Smotrich and the Ben-Gvirs, they will not be in the next government, and this will be with a lot of impact on the face of the government. But again, I say, when it will come to the core issues, continuing the occupation, continuing the apartheid, supporting all the military actions of Israel, you will be quite disappointed to see that all of them will not come with a new radical policy, but only continue more of the same.
Mm-hmm. So, Anel, another election, U.S. midterms coming up just a couple months away. Two questions inside this U.S. midterm calculation inside Trump's mind. One, can he recover from the position he's in right now by November where he can at least stop the bleeding for Republican seats at the midterms? And also, if Trump is looking at polls in Israel and he understands that Netanyahu's not coming back and he's viewing him as a lame duck prime minister, will this embolden him to kind of put more distance between the U.S. and Israel on Middle East policy, at least vis-a-vis the war in Iran?
Those questions are very much related. In order for Trump to end or achieve some kind of negotiated settlement to the Iran war will require him to make clear to Netanyahu that he is not going to continue to provide this open-ended support. So basically, if Trump realizes that throwing in all his support with Netanyahu is a losing game, potentially he would be able to eke out some kind of success, or what he could portray as a success that might be able to improve the chances for Republicans in the midterms. But as we've continually seen, the influence of the Israel lobby, of key billionaires like Miriam Adelson, Larry Ellison, these people who have such undue influence over U.S. politics, over the U.S.-Israel relationship, such that at this point it really has very little connection to the views of the American Jewish population, many of whom are horrified by what Israel is doing and do not want to continue to see the U.S. supporting these sorts of actions by Israel. That really doesn't matter anymore. It just matters what these incredibly powerful billionaires want, and they want this continued support for Israel. So I expect that moving forward, none of this looks good for the midterms. We've heard experts make clear that even if a deal was achieved and the Strait of Hormuz were to open, it would take many, many months for fossil fuel supplies to return to sort of pre-war levels. All of this is going to take a long time to get ironed out. And in addition, there's also questions about the ways that the Trump administration has been trying to consolidate power, whether it's through gerrymandering, whether it's through trying to take voter rolls. I mean, there are concerns about the extent to which the U.S. midterms will actually be free and fair elections, whether this administration will assault American democracy or will do everything it can to consolidate its control is an open question.
Mm-hmm. Helen, I want to continue on the theme of elections. We're about 13 months, I believe, away from elections in Greece, another country in the region that Turkey also has tensions with. And there's obviously a very real possibility that Turkey could have early elections as well. So you have potential leaders with very little wiggle room. They want to look tough. Netanyahu also trying to save himself from going to prison. He needs to win in Israel. Trump trying to turn it around, looking for a quick win. Probably going to be very unpredictable. You have Mitsotakis now, who's going to be fenced in where he needs to look strong against Turkey. And obviously, Erdogan's going to want to look strong if he has an early election as well. So what's going to happen? I mean, is this a recipe for disaster in the region? These are all very experienced leaders. Can they navigate what's to come?
We can still create a world with flexible alliances in which we can achieve peace much more easily. Looking at this regard, I see that the leaders of Turkey, leaders of Israel, Greece, and all the other countries, even the great states, they are totally aware that they have much more to win when they cooperate, when they come and sit at the negotiation table. At the moment, we see that the United States and Iran are still at the table, although there are some attacks, although there are some harsh statements, some signs that they will continue to fight. They all know that they have many things to win if they stay at the table and find a diplomatic solution.
Well, I'm happy that you're optimistic, but it looks like there's going to be a lot of flashpoints ahead for many of the actors involved in the region. Gideon, Anel, Helen, I want to thank you for joining me. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I really appreciate listening to your insights. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Yusuf Aram. If you got any comments, please share them with us on X at Straight Talk TRT. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find more exclusive content. Until next time, take care and goodbye.